Okay, that's a great one. There's a good. So maybe 3.
Perfect.
Cool.
Shall we do it?
Let's do it.
Hey there, teachers, and welcome to another very special episode of the More Than English podcast. I am your host, Jesse, and I want to help you in the classroom. And one of the ways that we do that is to bring some of the top professionals, top teachers that I know or can get in contact with to bring you lesson ideas, teaching advice, stories, anything to really help you in the classroom. And today is certainly no exception. But before we get into today's guest, let me just give you a reminder that if you are watching us on YouTube, these episodes are also available on Spotify, iTunes, anywhere that you get podcasts. And as we're listening to Harry's people in the restaurant and Harry's where Harry is. And if you are listening on the other platforms, they're also available in video form on YouTube. But let's get into today's guest and tell you about Mr. Harry Waters. He is one of the top professionals of teaching teens, or I should say was really, and we'll get into why the verb is was instead of is. A little bit about Harry. He has taught English for 12 years, 3 months, and 16 days exactly. He has taught in Argentina, Brazil, China, Vietnam, Australia, and Spain. Business, academies, schools, I'm sure private lessons, you name it in the teaching field, he has done it. He's presented in teaching conferences, and we can get into that too in the show. And now he works as an ELT consultant, a little bit of a promotion, I guess you could say, or at least a lateral move. And some of Harry's expertise is in giving creative ideas for teens. I've sat in on some of his training sessions. I've gotten ideas that I've done in my classes, and some of my ideas on Sweet Academy are directly from his brain. So we're also going to he's also an expert in giving practical and fun lessons. He's a very charismatic chap and one hell of a nice guy. And let's welcome in Harry.
Hello
What's
there,
up,
mate.
dude?
How you doing?
What's up, man?
Yeah, I'm
How's
good.
it going?
Pretty well. It's a bit windy out here, but it's all good.
Yeah, where are you right now? Barcelona?
I'm in Barcelona. I'm actually in La Hospitalet, which is right next to Barcelona. I'm in a neighborhood called Belviche. And as you can see, it's windy, so everyone can see my comb over perfectly.
Nice. Belviche, I like your pronunciation. I forgot to mention that you have acquired your B2 Spanish speaking certificate, right?
Oh, thank you very much.
There you go. How was that journey from being a teacher to studying for an exam?
Well, the good thing was being a teacher for so long, I knew all the exam tricks. So obviously with kids and adults doing their B1s, their B2s, a good portion of the class is taken up with tricks and tips and, how you can get through it. So that part was already dealt with. I then just had to get used to it and do some reading. And yeah, it was definitely weird, but I had a really good foundation, in knowing how to do the actual exam.
I was actually going to ask you if being a teacher helped you a lot in the exam prep and strategy and just taking the exam.
100%. Like all of the stuff that we stand there banging on about teaching, you should read the text first, you should go back, you should underline keywords. It all works.
You practice what you preached.
Exactly. We don't just stand there and say it for jokes. We do it and it actually worked. So yeah, it was really good. And I must have boosted my grade a good portion with just simple exam techniques, like listen for keywords and think of synonyms at the same time. Really good.
Very nice. That's awesome. So an ELT consultant, I know you said we were going to get into that later. You mind getting into it now? What is an ELT?
We can get right into it if you want.
Okay.
So yeah, as you say, it's a lateral move. I've gone across and I work for the editorial Pearson, and we what the ELT consultants do is we go around to schools and academies, and we offer advice on certain teaching methodologies and so on and so forth, and how it can tailor into their textbook needs and stuff like that. And then afterwards we provide plenty of follow-ups with training for the teachers and talks and sessions like that, and like practical walkthroughs of how to access all of the fantastic online and digital materials. So a bit of everything basically. But I get to see a lot of teachers, which is they're certainly a type of person that I love. So it's certainly good to get in touch and like still be involved very much with teaching and that sort of thing.
Are you doing like teacher training in academies and public schools too, or
that's the role of the ELT consultant is to basically like not only help with the like choice of books and so on, but then help afterwards with training the teachers how to use the materials, also practical ideas. Like for example, today I was at a session which had about reading, like helping people with the reading exam, obviously, but like practical ideas of how to implement that in class and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. It's something that's it seems great for what I was doing before, and it's also something very, very different. So it's definitely an interesting job.
I'm sure it's very different, kind of in the same world, but I imagine completely different, talking to specifically teachers about how to train their students.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Well, that kind of that side of things is a lot like what I was doing with teacher training before. So like it tailors in really nicely with, well, I guess what are my strengths.
Very nice. And not as many discipline issues, I'd imagine.
Not nearly as many discipline issues.
Maybe a few.
Yeah, one or two, but that's usually myself.
I remember in our teachers' meetings before in our academies, if Neil and I were in the same, Neil is a friend, common friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, that, there were definitely discipline issues with us in teacher meetings.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. What I really love is the amount of time you spend as a teacher standing at the front of your class going, guys, can you please be quiet? I'm saying something important. There's something important to say. You get into the teachers' meeting and they're all sitting there chatting, they're on their phones, and it's like, you can't complain about your students doing that if you're sitting there doing exactly the same thing. But we all do it. We all do it.
And that actually, observing that in the classroom helped me a lot with having patience with my kids, because if we're doing that kind of thing, I mean, you got to be understanding about that.
Exactly. Yeah, understanding, like you say, and that's basically one of the key foundations of like the whole the teen issue that like we were going to talk about, like teen discipline in the classroom. Understanding for me is number one. It's the first thing on the list.
I definitely, absolutely agree with that too. And putting yourself in their shoes, essentially.
Right? Well, exactly. I mean, we were all teenagers once, but I know that things are different now for teenagers with like the issues of mobiles and stuff like that. And we didn't have that, but we certainly found our own distractions while we were in the classroom.
Absolutely. Even if it's looking at the clock and watching it move.
And it can do quite a lot of moving actually while you're there in a class.
It can.
Especially if it's not an engaging one.
Oh, and even if it is, depending on the kind of student you're.
Absolutely, because that's the thing. Every single student is different, and that's one of the beauties of being a teacher, is tapping in to what makes those students interested, and what makes them tick, and what stops them looking at the clock ticking. Those those different things. There's just small different techniques that you kind of think you take for granted, but then you realize that often it's the small things. So many times people have just given me a tiny idea and it's made such a massive difference to my classes, particularly with teens. I mean, I found it much easier to control the little ones. You can give them pretty much straight discipline and, reward them with stickers, but every teen works a little bit differently because they're all at a different developmental stage. And they've all got their own kind of, their own way. In academy teaching, it's a lot easier to hone in on because you're there with maybe 12 of them, and then
and that's a big academy class.
Well, yeah, exactly. And then in your school teaching, there's 25 of them, so it's really hard to not let any of them sort of slip through the net, as it were.
Yeah, I learned that last year working in a school with 25, 27, 30 students that, I mean, it's almost an effort and futility trying to get everybody paying attention, because as a native speaker, we're also, for a lot of them, the throwaway class, the free class. There's that to fight against too.
I completely agree with you. And like that kind of throwaway free class thing was something that while I was at my last school, I really tried to use it to my advantage and be like, well, this can be your throwaway free class. It can be super fun. It can be super amazing. And we can just, speak and like do fun things. But we can't do that if you don't behave and if you don't listen and if you don't pay attention. Obviously, they're not always going to pay attention. But I think the thing that we were talking about, like being interested, but you being interested in them. Now, I can remember not long ago, but a teacher came in to the staff room and was just like, oh, Jose in my class, he's just, I don't know what to do. All he ever talks about is tennis. Tennis this, tennis that, tennis this, tennis that. And well, I just don't know what to do with him. I can't get him interested. And it's just, you stop and you think, some kids it's really hard to get to, but Jose, he was easy. You do a class about tennis. Like, listen to what your students like. All the course book materials, they're all led to teams. They're all based upon teams. You could, if you don't want to stray away from your textbook, you can find that section in the book, and you can get Jose to give a talk about tennis or why Rafa Nadal is better than Federer. You can hook him into that, and that's one of the things that it really troubles me with teens teachers is they come into the class and it's like, oh, Fortnite this, Fortnite that. All they talk about is Fortnite. Of course, all they talk about is Fortnite. All they do is play Fortnite. So how's about you turn your class into a Fortnite class? Tailor it to their needs, tailor it to their wants. If they want to watch a YouTube video of somebody playing Fortnite, watch that video, break it down, see what they talk about, use that video in class, because they will go absolutely mental. They'll go crazy for it. They'll be like, wow, we did a class on Fortnite, and they will not forget that class, not ever. And then you've got them on your side.
That, I couldn't have said it better. That's the best lessons that I've learned from my experience too, is use their interest. Don't fight against them. That's the hardest thing. Many teachers fight against themselves in trying to keep discipline or keep focused or keep the class academic. Communication, teaching communication, and we communicate about things that interest us.
Well, exactly. And if you've hooked them in with this, this Fortnite video, give them 2 minutes to go crazy. Like, let them go wild about it, because they don't get to watch Fortnite videos in their classes. So let them go wild for a second. Then you calm them down. You can watch the video, and then after that, if necessary, you can bring in the grammar point. You can find a grammar point in any video. You can watch any video, and they can say something in that video, and you can find it. You're watching Fortnite. You can use a conditional. If he hadn't done that, what might have happened? It's so easy to link it into any video, and if you've got them linked into it, if you've got them hooked on it, then that for me is the real key to taking steps with teens.
Absolutely. And I love that. You can link a grammar lesson or speaking lesson, expressions lesson into anything we communicate with, anything we talk about, that can be a language lesson right there.
Absolutely.
That person okay?
Yeah, he's just having a good sneeze. It's a really big one, actually.
That's okay. It happens to all of us. That's gold right there. And another thing that has helped me, and I don't know if you want to talk about this, is being a teacher has helped me immensely as a parent.
Oh, so much, and vice versa.
And vice versa, exactly.
Yeah, like just the understanding that kids will be kids. You can't expect your 6-year-old to be perfectly behaved all the time. If they're mildly well behaved most of the time, then you're getting somewhere. And yet again, to look into their interests, like to join in with it. if your kid loves super zings, then play super zings with them. Invent characters for them, build their creativity. Use what you learn with your kids, with your students, and then vice versa, what you learn with your students with your kids. Like, you can always see the students whose parents have, really instilled manners in them, because, you'll have a brother and sister, and I never like to, compare brothers and sisters for their academic ability, but you can really see it with their manners, when they come into the class. So you can have one student who's absolutely brilliant. She's incredible at language. She behaves really well, but she's always really, really polite to you. And maybe her little brother is not quite so academically gifted, but he's still well behaved to you. He might be more active, but you can really see those really important things that parents can do, and the way you can see the ones who have looked over the homework with their kids. You can really see it as a parent, and it's really guided me to try and have a closer relationship with my daughter. But yeah, and I'm sure it's the same with yourself.
Yeah, and not only have a closer relationship with my daughter and my son now, but also kind of, like you said, you can identify, well, it's all speculation really, but identify what certain lives are like in certain areas, and to reach out to those that need it. And sometimes the teens that cause the biggest problems, there's for a reason sometimes,
Yeah.
whether it's a lack of attention or too strict, or
Yeah, well, there's always a reason for it. There's always a reason for it. And yeah, you may never find out the reason for it, but knowing that everybody has their problems, and understanding that, it's really helped me as a parent, like you say, and also as a teacher.
And vice versa. Absolutely. So your specialty is coming up with games. You've come up with incredible games. I've used the telephone game countless times, the telephone pronunciation game.
Yeah.
It's on Sweet Academy with another sort of game. Conversation interrupt. When I observed your class on one of my first days, I remember that, where you choose a partner and you have a conversation, and then the other person interrupts with a question about what you just said. I've used that tons of times. I mean, practical idea. Share with us some of your ideas that you like, some of your best ideas.
Okay, so
if you want to, we can demonstrate some of it. Whatever, the floor is yours.
Okay, cool. Well, I thought I'd go with 3 of them today. One of them's super successful. I'll save that till the end, and really fun. But the first one, it's not only for teens. This one, it's one that it's really good for question formation, which is something I really focus on, especially teaching here in Spain. There are lots and lots and lots of problems with question formation, and I've done this activity with kids from 6 or 7 years old. I'm looking at the floor and down there, and I was doing the hand sign, all the way to teenagers.
There it is.
That are really tall.
There it is.
And adults as well. And it's called "Why Is There a Monkey in Your Bag?"
I like it already.
It's pretty simple. You bring your bag into class. It doesn't have a monkey in it. I'm pretty sure there are laws against that in most countries, that you're not allowed to bring live monkeys into class. So don't actually put a monkey in there. But you hand it to one student and you directly ask them, you look them in the eye, deadpan, and you say, "Why is there a monkey in your bag?" And Jesse, who's obviously the student, would say,
because he has to go to school as well.
It's true. What school does your monkey go to, Jesse?
Well, he goes to this school, Harry, because he's in our class.
Ah, of course. What's your monkey's name?
Philip.
Philip the monkey.
Sorry, his name is Philip.
Okay, his name's Philip. Philip the monkey. I'm not sure I've ever met him. What's Philip the monkey's favorite food?
He likes peanuts and bananas, and peanut butter on bananas.
He's a traditional monkey with an untraditional twist.
Yeah.
So yeah, these questions, you can go around the whole class. You can go on and on and on and on and on. I've got a persistent fly, by the way. So if you see me hitting myself, it's not just for dramatic effect.
Your camera is so clear. I saw the fly before you swatted it.
Well, there you go. The questions can go on and on and on, and then when you see it tailing off, you get the person with the bag, which is you in this case, to hand the bag to another student, and I'm gonna ask them why they have something else in their bag. Like, I don't know, why do you have a motor torpedo boat in your bag? Or, you know, you can
So the
you can do it
second
with
person would kind of like invent another name or invent
exactly.
another thing that. Okay.
So then you can go around, and with kids, you can do it with animals. So you start with a monkey, and then Miguel passes the bag to Paula, and Miguel asks Paula, why is there an elephant in your bag? And then they can go around, and you can really reinforce those questions, or they can invent their own questions. So it has that kind of that range, that differentiation, in that they can copy a question from before if they don't have the level. But if they do have the level, they can go wacky, they can go out there, and they can be creative. So it kind of aids everybody in this situation, and it really helps with question formation. But also something else I really like to add into when I'm teaching questions is the reaction to the questions. So rather than it just being, what does he eat? Well, he eats bananas, sometimes with peanut butter. The reaction. A traditional monkey with an untraditional twist. So it's adding something. So rather than just asking the question, it's aiding that communication, like what you would need in a conversation. And you can start this from the time they're basically, as soon as they're speaking, you can introduce this game, and it's a lot of fun. And especially with your teens and your older students, try and stay away from certain objects because, you know, they can think of a lot of things.
I bet they
I think
can.
one of the most common ones when they're around 10 or 11 is, why is there a poo in your bag? Be prepared for that.
That's got to be one of the first ones that somebody does.
Yeah, it's usually
Maybe
the second or
fourth.
third. Yeah, exactly. It's not straight away, but they usually get in there quite quickly. You know, it gets to the smart kid, and he's like, why is there a poo in your bag? And you can see he's been thinking about it the whole time he's had the bag. He's been sitting there thinking, I'm gonna say poo. Getting so, and like, this is all ages. You get the 16-year-old boy like, why is there a poo in your bag? Ha ha ha. They all burst out laughing. You laugh as well because, you know, when is poo not funny in an
That's
English
another
class?
thing. Don't be afraid to laugh at your students' jokes if they're funny.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have to always be the serious, you know, stickler in there.
No, exactly.
I've laughed at students' jokes and then told them they can't say that in certain cases, but like, it's funny. It's funny. Come on.
Yeah.
Enjoy
Yeah,
your
and also they get a lot more out of it if you laugh. It boosts their confidence, and rather than you just saying you can't do that. I mean, you know, it depends on the joke. You know,
Sure.
everybody knows where to draw a line. You know, nothing overtly offensive or, you know, about another student, but, you know, if they make a funny joke, it's worth laughing about. And especially if they make a joke about themselves, that one's always good. Like, the kind of, if you do it, if you show that you can make a joke about yourself and laugh about yourself, when they can sort of do that and join in with it, it's really good. It's a big step.
Yeah, and we don't even have to get too upset if they say something a little off color. Just a little look like, and a grin like,
yeah,
you can't say it.
And make sure
like
they know it's not appropriate.
Yeah. And that's enough sometimes. Very nice. I love it. Why is there a monkey in your bag? And which also works with like unit vocabulary. If you're learning about like kitchen appliances or school items or something.
Exactly. And you can get them to spell it out if you want them to, you know. So why is there a DOG in your bag? That gives that extra bit of thinking, and it stretches it out. This can be like a quick warmer, or this can be like a half an hour class activity, because that way everybody gets to have a turn, everybody's involved, everybody's thinking. You're writing them up on the board, or you can have a student be your scribe and they write the questions up on the board, or they write it in their book. So then at the end you can feed back, and it can turn into a whole big class activity rather than just a really quick one-off thing. Okay, so the next one,
and
that's the coffee machine.
Before we go on,
sorry,
that's a great point. is explore the language, right?
Yeah.
I like on my lessons on the site here on Sweet Academy, I like to put like times for the lessons, but sometimes it's hard because you can explore almost any activity, write it on the board,
Yeah.
think of different options to say, correct it, have the students come up with other ways to say it. You can explore the language and don't be afraid to do that in your classes.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things that I was impressing upon my colleagues here, that the first class, it's always, how are you? I'm fine. And like it kind of drives me mad because that's so easy to do. So like I just give them 5 other
And
ways to
so
say I'm
unnatural,
fine.
by the way.
Well, yeah, like I have this whole, I go into the class and I put these, 5 or 6 different things on the board. Like, how are you? I'm good. I'm great. I'm on top of the world. I could be better. I've been worse. Like, you got those things up on the board. That can be one of your routines at the start of the class. When the kids come in, you ask them how they are. You've got it up there. They can practice that. They can go with that. And it gets away from the, how are you? I am fine. They say with tears streaming down their face, I'm fine, I'm fine.
Or in between talking to a friend, they're talking about whatever they did in the weekend, Maria, I'm fine, thank you, and you. And then they just go on talking about whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, the really exploring it and going into it, and like you say, not being afraid to go over time. You'll have an activity planned in as a warmer or a filler, and you're like, that's going to take 10 minutes, and you get 10 minutes in, and the class are loving it, and the class are learning loads. Carry on. Whatever else you're going to do does not matter. What you're getting from that, if the kids are enjoying it, the kids are having fun, it hasn't tailed off to nothing. Keep on going. Yes, you've got other things to do in your syllabus, but if they're learning and they're loving it in that moment, just keep going. You can do something else next class. Just cut it out, forget it, do it the next class. Don't automatically set it for homework, because that will then have the students going, we had a real good time, but then we got loads of homework because we were learning, but ended up having to do the stuff that we didn't do. Just leave it for another day. There will always be time to fit that into another class.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. You say you were going to go into another thing.
I was going to go on.
Go ahead.
Now this one isn't my idea. This is one I picked up a long time ago, but it's one again that can really be used for a whole bunch of levels, for a whole bunch of vocabulary. But I like to call it city race. So what you do is you put your students in teams. Let's say there are 3 teams. You get them all to give you their team name. The way I like to do it is with an adjective, a color, and then a noun. So you might have the big green pigs. Okay, very interesting. Or you might have the hilarious fluorescent pink ocelots. So they're your team names. You've got your 3 teams. Now I have a mild obsession with capital cities. I really love capital cities. So I like to go around and ask the teams to vote on a capital city.
Like, you mean learning them, or?
Oh, I love learning them, yeah. Okay. I love learning them. It's also one of my favorite things when anyone says, has anybody got any questions? My go-to question is, what's the capital city of Burkina Faso? Because nobody expects that question. Especially when you're in like a teacher's conference or a teacher's talk. Anyone got any questions? Yeah, excuse me. What's the capital city of Burkina Faso? And it's actually one that I included on my last talk. I had my feedback sheets, and it was, were any of the things useful to you? What was your favorite activity? What's the capital of Burkina Faso? Will you use any of these activities in class? And they're all just like, that's bizarre. So yeah, I love capital cities. So what I do, I go around, I ask them a capital city. First, they're like, Paris, Madrid, New York. That's not a capital. What? Yeah, traditional. So then, you can work on your capitals, and maybe they'll come up with Edinburgh. What I then do, I go up to the whiteboard, because everybody's got a whiteboard, and I write Edinburgh, but I write it vertically, going down, okay? So you got ED and so on, all the way down. And then I put those in 3 lines. And then the students have a race, and they have to go up one by one. And I'll be very strict with your rules at the start of this game. What I do, I always start by saying no running. If you run, you have a 10-second penalty. And only one person can be standing up, and they must have the pen in their hand. So I make sure the students...
So you have 3 lines of students, 3 teams.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't put them in lines.
Okay.
I keep them sitting in their chairs, but I have the teams together. So then what the students have to do, they have to stand up with the pen, walk to the board, and write a word. I don't know, maybe you can do it as lexical sets, or you can just do it as any word. So you've got E, maybe they just write enough on the board. So one of them writes enough, another one writes every day, and another one writes egg. So they've done that, and then they have to walk to the next person who takes the pen, walks up to the board, and they're doing Edinburgh, so they have to do the D. So they write a word for D, dangerous. And then you tell them, think about, expanding that. The next is like, dangerous. I'm going to write dangerously. So you go through, and you basically get them to write up as much vocabulary as you can, be it in a lexical set that you're focusing on, or just be it in general. When one team finishes, I always give them a bonus point for finishing first. And then we all step back from the board, and we look at the words. I say 1 point for a word up to 5 letters, 2 points for a word for 6 letters, and then 3 points for a word 7 or over. And I go through and I count up the points for each team. If there's a spelling mistake, it's wrong.
Boom.
Out you go. That way they can learn the proper spelling.
And the care.
And they'll always be like, yeah, exactly. And they'll always be like, oh, but he copied me. Sorry. There's not a lot I can do about that. That means you were finishing. And I like to say that, it's the finest, imitation is the finest form of flattery.
There you go.
So yeah, he was copying you, but you'd already written it, so your team wins. Count up all the points, check out all the spelling mistakes, and then sit back down. Now you can do it in other ways. You can do it with words containing those letters. You can do it with sentences starting with those letters. You can do it with different lexical sets. You can do the word that goes down doesn't have to be a capital city. I mean, I will be brutally offended if you don't use a capital city, but it can be something from the lexical set that you're using, or words that they often misspell. So in Spain, for example, which, they always forget the H. They're WH questions, but they always forget the H. So maybe you want to do it with which. You write it up there.
Or with, which I don't know why, but they usually spell it WHIP, or how they spell something. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, it drives me absolutely mental. It's one of the things I start with at the start of the class, like early days. I go through some of the mistakes I've come across over the years, and I say, everybody, please write these in the front page of your notebook. Please write these in the front page of your notebook. And make sure you don't do these different things. You're fun and you're funny, and these typical Spanish mistakes.
Yeah.
So that game's really good for class control. Like, one of the things is like the discipline, and when I used to do it in the lines, like you say, but the problem is they're running to the front, they're pushing, they're trying to get there. So if you keep them in their chairs and they're not allowed to run, they have to stand up, they have to walk over like a reasonable pace. And the important thing in the game is that they write it quickly. It also gives them time to think about it, because there's always 1 or 2 students that are a bit slower than others, and they need their time to think about it. So that way, while they're walking up to the board, they're sitting there, they're looking at it, they're walking up there slowly, they get there, and they're like, okay, I've got a word for G. And they go up there and they write go, and then they can sit down again, and it's all good. They've got their letter up there.
And
so there you go.
Adapt the rules. Like we just talked, you just gave a few adaptations right there. That, make your own rules. I was thinking about one as you were talking that I would probably, I don't know, maybe I would predict the word, and if they wrote the word that I predicted, then they wouldn't get any points or something like that.
That's a great idea.
And you repeat it, that would save like eat elephant. Yeah, I would predict elephant.
That's really good. I hadn't actually thought of that.
Yeah, so adaptability is your friend as a teacher, right?
Oh, very much. And like you say, when it comes to looking at these games or these ideas or anything like that, it's, for me, a huge thing is adaptability. Like I said at the start, that game, that's not my game. That's a game I saw on the internet, I don't know, 10 years ago. I used it once, and then, I've taken it, I've adapted it, I've molded it to fit the way I would teach it. And that's the thing with any game. Like, I'd say probably a good 40% of the games, the ideas that I use in workshops have been taken from a different idea and just slightly reworked, because you don't need to reinvent the wheel.
No.
You can adapt the wheel. Maybe your wheel doesn't need spokes anymore. You can change it around, but you don't need to completely reinvent it.
Absolutely. And it's probably best that you don't. There's so many resources here,
Yeah.
and, like you said, adapt theirs to your style or your classes, and then make it your own, That's what you do.
And that's the thing with when it comes to teaching is it's time. You don't have time to spend hours and hours and hours preparing, thinking about these ideas. So what I like to try and do with as many of my ideas as possible, as you can see, is they're prep free. Like that's no preparation in that whatsoever. There's practice in it, but like, why is there a monkey in your bag? You need a bag. The kids bring a bag to school. Like, everything's already there. They're things that you already have. So it's something that you don't need to sit there cutting up pieces of paper, laminating, making sure you've got the right number of mini whiteboards, which is an amazing tool. Don't get me wrong. I love mini whiteboards. But they're things that you can just do.
Just do. I love activities with little or no prep. And then you always end up forgetting something or leave it in another classroom if you or the teacher's room or something, and that just breaks momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so shall I move on to my third game?
Yes.
Game note, English learning activity. Obviously, it's an ELA, an English learning activity. It's not a game. Games are fun. Don't have fun in the classroom. Fun is fun. You're here to learn.
Fun here.
I'll do some grammar. Learn the grammar now.
Learn it now, and if you don't, you're punished.
Exactly. You're punished with grammar activities.
Let me say, I hope this one is your lyric, your song question thing. So
it is.
Oh, yes.
It's gone through, as I've said before, it's gone through adaptations. I started out, I called it Talk to the Stars, but I've turned it into Songversation, because you're having a conversation with the song. You can also call it Talk to the Stars if you want to introduce it to your students as a way to interview their favorite singer, songwriter.
Do not change it. I love Songversation.
Songversation it is.
Yeah.
So Songversation is something that I can't take 100% credit for. No, I can't, because I used to play the game in the car with myself and my wife and my daughter. We'd be driving along, listening to any song, and I got into the habit of when you know the lyrics to a song, I got into the habit of preempting what the singer was gonna sing, and I'd ask a question, and their response with the line of the song would be answering my question. And I found it worked with most songs. The slower the song, the better when you're driving, because you can't pause it. It's kind of dangerous to be there on Spotify driving along. Like, hang on, just playing a game, guys. I do not advocate mobile phones while driving. Absolutely, very much against that.
But all fair in joking about it.
But joking about it, but do not do it.
Absolutely not. Even walking, by the way, that's a pet peeve of mine. People walking with their noses in their phone. Come on.
Yeah, it's bumping into people. Yeah, it's not something I particularly like. So everybody likes it. Yeah, everybody likes at least one song. People will try and say they don't, but everybody likes at least one song. So what I like to do with my students is, we are in a mobile world now. I don't like to completely deny them their phones, their tech and all that stuff. But if they don't have it, you can do it as a teacher at the front of the class, with your computer, or just with the lyrics to a song. So I like to get the first verse of the song. It can be any song. One song I did recently was the 2009 hit "Dynamite" by Tailor. You may or may not know it.
I do not.
When you hear it, you will know it. I'll tell you what. I'll look for it on my other mobile device, and I'll play it because that will help with the activity.
We
So
might get
you look for the
flagged
lyrics.
on YouTube though.
I won't do that then, because
But anyone listening can look that up. What's it called?
it's "Dynamite" by Tailor.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a great song to do this activity with. But I won't do it because I don't want to get flagged on YouTube.
Yeah.
Or Spotify or whatever device
Or
I would use to listen to it.
Any place that you use to get your podcasts.
Yeah, any place you can get this very same podcast in any one of these wonderful places. So you get the lyrics to the song. For example, this song, the first lyric is "I came to dance, 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 dance." So I would open it up. I'd tell the students, okay, what does that mean in your language? They can translate it. You can go through what it means in their language to make sure they know. Most people know what "I came to dance" means. It's not a particularly nuanced sentence. The guy wanted to dance. So you start by having the lyrics on the board. "I came to dance," and you say, okay, you're going to interview this guy, or you're going to have a conversation with this guy. So how would you start that conversation? Well, usually with "hello." Good. Hello. Is that like you'd say that to your friends? Hello. No, I'd probably say hi or hey. Cool. Hey. And what's his name? Tailor. Good. Okay. Tailor. Hey, Tailor. So you've introduced yourself. Then, how are you? How are things? What have you been up to? Or you look for "I came to dance." What's the question going to be? Why did you come here? Yeah. Hey, Tailor, why did you come here? And his response is going to be, "I came to dance, 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 dance." Okay. So then you've got the next line. And it's something about getting to the floor because they are his plans. So again, you line up the question for that. The line after that is, "I'm wearing all my favorite brands. So you follow on from, what were your favorite plans? They sound like interesting plans, Teo. I like those plans. Again, building on the sentence they've said before, not just moving straight on to the next question. One of the big problems is, there you go.
Here are the lyrics if you want to show.
Look at that.
Your
He's
lyrics
a genius. He's a technical genius.
On
So
in front of your classes, right? Google.
There you go. You've got the lyrics.
There you go.
So you've started out. You've said, "Hey, Teo, what did you come here to do?" "I came to dance, 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 dance." Excellent. I love dancing. Dancing's fun. Do you have any plans for this evening? "I hit the floor because that's my plans. Very interesting. Again, I like those plans. I'm also a fan of your outfit today. What are you wearing, Teo? "I'm wearing all my favorite brands. Yes, I can see you wearing all your favorite brands, all listed there and monochromed on your shirt. And then, is there anything I can provide you with this evening? Give me some space for both my hands. You see, so you go along and you build it up. You make the questions, and you can have that as one person asking the questions. You can put them in pairs, you can put them in groups. And then after that, the possibilities are endless. What I like to do is give a different verse of the very same song first to all the different groups or the different pairs. So they all ask the questions to Tailor. They go through, they work through it, you play it at the end of the class. They ask the question, you pause it on YouTube, Spotify, or whatever device you're using. Then they continue, they ask the next question, they unpause it, and they're there, they have this interview. You can turn it into, I did it as a video project with one of my classes, and I got them to record themselves asking these questions, but I got them to go and choose their own song. So you've done it with your song, you've showed them how to do it, you've modeled it, you've given them a great activity, you've gone through it with them, they know how to do it, then you send them away to get their own song. Obviously, you have to be careful with what song they're going to go for. Make sure, you know, you say no explicit lyrics or nothing too reggaeton, because, you know, it's not particularly appropriate.
Have to
If
be
you want, you
English.
can give them a list of songs. Yeah, you can go through in the class what songs they're going to do, that they're going to look at, that they're going to go through. Then they go home, and if they need to translate the lyrics, again, you show them that it's okay. Like, I don't see why we would ban them using their own language when it can be used as a tool, you know, and they can find out what the words mean so they can properly form their questions.
And it's more
And the next day,
authentic. It's real. What do I do
exactly,
if I'm trying to have a Spanish conversation and I don't know the word? Well, I go to word reference, or I go to
exactly. Oh, yeah, and I find out what it means. So yeah,
right.
it's and again, it's about personalizing it to them. This works with, I'd say, from sort of B1 level, maybe A2 plus kind of level,
Will it work with?
starting
Yeah, I
around
guess
10,
that low.
11.
Yeah, that
Yeah, I'd
young.
start that low. Yeah, because
Okay.
it's all about, that can just be about the questions.
Yeah,
Then
sure.
you can
Right.
like help them with their song. But again, the further, the higher up they go, the better they are. When you're with your advanced ones, you want them to be having a really, really in-depth conversation, as it were. And, you know,
And
it's
not
going
only
to them.
exploring different ways. For example, like adapting these to higher level students instead of using the question word why. Why did you come here? What did you come here for?
Yeah.
There are different ways that there's always somewhere to go, isn't there?
Well, exactly. And when it's with music as well, there's something I do in English. Like, I'll listen to a song 50 times and I'll be singing along with it. And then one day I'll just stop and think, whoa, that's what it means. Like, I knew what the meaning of each word, but I didn't know what the song was actually talking about. So it gives them that like chance to go in depth about the song. They can really learn about the song, and it's going to be something that they like, something that they love. You're not imposing it on them. I mean, you know, you're going to say to them, you know, please don't do "Killing in the Name" by Rage Against the Machine. It might not be appropriate. It'd be good for them to learn the message, but the
Or
sort of
maybe
ending
yes,
to that song.
for maybe adult students or
Yeah,
like younger adults, like university students that are kind of at
yeah,
that age of exploring themselves, exploring how far they can go and thinking for themselves. That might be an
yeah.
option.
Yeah, of
Uh,
course. Yeah, that's a good idea.
like you said also earlier, adapt these for your classes and listen to your students. If you have one way to do this in mind and the students are kind of starting to do a different thing that you had in mind, like don't guide them over into your track necessarily.
Yeah,
Allow them to
exactly.
take the activity where they want.
Yeah, because they are like one of your greatest resources. You know, they're the prime resource. And again, it's the class is not about you. The class is about them. And the problem is, like, sometimes you'll go in with an activity that you prepared and you're like, they're going to love it. And they hate it. You know, it happens. And you're really dejected. And you're like, I'm really going to try and make them love it. Sometimes they don't love it. That activity, however, Songversations, is not one I've ever found more than 2 or 3 students that don't love it. Also, it gives them a chance to get on their phone, if that's permitted in your educational establishment. If not, they've always got the when they go home, they can check it out. I mean, even if they don't have a computer and internet at home, which is incredibly rare these days, they can go somewhere and they can find it. They can get the lyrics from school. Like, it's the access to getting some song lyrics is so very easy, and it also takes away from any excuse from not doing their homework. And here's another thing about trying to kind of motivate your students is, if you're going to give them homework, make it something realistic that they might like. Like this, they will like. Them having to do, like, there are times when they have to do page 20 grammar practice. There are times they have to do that. But like, buffer it with something a bit nicer. Try and get the more boring things. Try and work them into your class so you can make them interesting. So it's not them going home going, page 20, grammar, done. Or even worse, getting outside your class right before it's starting and just looking at Marina's book, being like, Marina, what is it? You always do the homework. Let me copy, going in. There you go. Done it.
I was just going to say that.
So yeah, it can help avoid that. But yeah, there are many more games. I won't bog you down with them all today. Perhaps we can have another session in the future
I would love
where
that.
I would perhaps be in a place that was slightly less public with less frequent sneezing, less wind, so my obvious bald spot wasn't quite as obvious.
And less conversation in the background. But this was great, though.
It's authentic.
It is authentic, and it gives a little spice. I mean, it's a great example of what we need to be in class, because things don't always work out perfectly. There are always distractions and things to work through, and it's important to just keep moving forward.
Exactly. Not give up. Not give up on something. Just keep going and not give up, especially on your students.
That's so true.
And it's hard.
They need someone to believe in them.
There are students that make you really mad, really frequently. And yeah, it is tapping into why they make you mad, and if there's a way that you can stop them making you mad. So yeah, if you can get those students on your side, then that's the key. The kids who want to learn are always going to want to learn. They're going to need your help. They're always going to want to learn. And the ones who don't want to learn are going to be the ones distracting those kids. So you will help your favorite students by working on those who are perhaps not your favorites. Obviously, we love all of our students equally, and we don't have favorites, because that's just wrong.
That is wrong and unethical, and none of us have that. But
there are no favorites in class.
Also, like you said, like we talked about in the very beginning, it comes down to understanding, and something that I found helps me in the class immensely is look at that student as a one-on-one student, because I have one-on-one students that I know if we were in a classroom, like I'd probably want to wring the neck.
Yeah.
And not physically. I would want to, but
You would never do that.
No, I would never do that on purpose. But on a one-on-one, they're a person, right? So imagine this person as a one-on-one. Look at them as a student, as opposed to just the distractor, and that's helped me a lot. Look at the student that is less likable, and look at them as a person. And when they give that reaction or that response that just grinds on your gears, that you just kind of take a second and breathe and look at them as if you were with them one-on-one and be like, what did that mean? And that will, a lot of the time, more time than not, like turn them around and help them kind of be a little introspective too.
Well, I had exactly that case in my last school. There was one boy who was particularly difficult. He had attention problems, like he had been diagnosed with ADHD, and he was not academic. There are kids who are not academic. Surprise, surprise, we don't all fit into this box where we can all do maths exams. We're all brilliant at learning. We're all amazing students, and everything comes easily to us. He wasn't academic, and added to that, he had his own health problems. So he was seen by loads and loads of teachers just being a problem and just cast aside. But I had the chance that I did like classes of refuerzo, like support classes with him, to boost his level in English. And in that time, like I got to speak to him, I got to know him, and he was well into Instagram and YouTube, and he had loads of followers, and obviously he was a teenage boy. He is a teenage boy. He loves Fortnite, and just finding out about those things, then, okay, in class, he still wasn't the best. He still had his problems, but I could get him involved, and maybe he, didn't completely join into the classes, but he didn't completely disrupt the classes. He went from just being the clown in my classes to being like, right, I might not be the best, but I'm going to actually try, and I'm going to at least not distract everybody else. So if you can get that chance to be one-on-one with them and actually speak to them and find out about it, it can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. I'm reminded of in summer camp, we had interns come over from the United States to help us with the classes. And there was one 11-year-old class, and there were some like students, especially one boy who was very disruptive and kind of disrespectful according to the teachers. Well, the intern, she took him out and she's like, let's go for a walk. And he's like, and she's like, no, let's just go for a walk. And they walked and talked and like made a complete difference in his life, probably, but especially in his comportamiento, his behavior in the camp. And so much as like a few days later, he went up to her and he's like, can we go for another walk? And he really opened up and said, like, you know, the teacher's always picking on him and his sister's always the favorite. And like, there it is.
Yeah, and it's obvious. It's like it can be seen straight away. It's something that is growing slowly in the classrooms here, but really the emotional intelligence side of things is so important. And yeah, like taking the time and having a listen, it can make such a massive difference.
Such a difference. Awesome,
cool.
Man.
Well, I'm going to go and catch my flight. I'll be back in Seville with you soon to see my wonderful family.
And that's amazing.
Wait.
I am gonna, well, let me review some show notes. During these, you probably saw me typing or what it looked like I was typing, which was me typing. And I took some show notes. If you have to run, then you go ahead.
Oh, no, it's good. I've got a few more minutes. It's all good. I've got a few more. I'm just going to actually check the time before I say that. I have a few more minutes. We're all good.
4:30, 4:26 here. Okay.
There you go.
We had a bunch of gold here. So the first thing, understand your students, as we started out talking about and ended up talking about in our conversation. Understand your students as people. And this is something that came up a lot. And it's so important as a teacher and a parent and just a person in general, right? Use the free class that the students see our classes as to your advantage. And that's something I've learned over experience, and Harry has touched on too. Use it to your advantage. It's less pressure on you. Don't put more pressure on yourself when it's taken off of you. Be interested in the students and use their interests to help you. And you can link grammar points or conversation points in any grammar, any lesson, any video you watch, any song, anything the students are into, you can link a language lesson into it. Some of the activities, why is there a monkey in your bag? Awesome. I didn't go over how to play that because you'll just watch the video again if you need a summary. But some of the important points, it teaches reactions to their questions. Add your own flavor to the students. Do this game more than once, right? Let the students become familiar with the game so they can add their own flavors onto it too. Explore language in any areas that we teach. Keep momentum going. If the students like something you don't have planned, then go with that. You know, don't fight against yourself. The city race, awesome. Using capital cities. First, as you do any game, set the rules beforehand and make them clear. Adapt the games for your classes and your styles. Songversation, create activities. I also have an Instagram activities, but bring their phones into the class. Don't always just say, put your phones away. Use them, for crying out loud. Model the activity first. Remember, I love this that you said, the class is not about you. It's about them, right? Give them realistic homework and see your students as people. And boom, there we have it.
There you go. Fantastic.
Anything you want to plug or talk about or anything else before we leave?
I'll save the plug until the next one.
There you go. Okay.
Speak to you soon, Jesse. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for doing this. Thanks a lot. Later.
See you later.
Hey guys, I'm sitting here with my daughter, Sophia. She's recording this, and I just want to thank you for watching this video. If you like it and you want to see another video like it, then right next to me, you can click another video for a fun lesson idea or a teaching tip. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you get new videos every week.